people are fighting for their lives following a shooting near a nightclub at Keele and Finch. We're live with the latest.
2 people have been seriously injured in a high-rise fire near Islington and Lakeshore. One of them rescued from a 7th-floor unit.
And new figures are painting a grim picture of Ontario's healthcare staffing shortage. The province will need more than 33,000 nurses and 51,000 PSWs by 2032.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thank you for joining us. 2 people are in critical condition in an overnight shooting near Keele and Finch.
Let's go to CP24's Courtney Hills, who's near the scene with the latest. Courtney.
Good afternoon, Lena and Bakari, and this is still a very active investigation. We don't know who is responsible for this double shooting that broke out overnight. I'll show you the area where police were for much of the morning. They cleared a couple of hours ago, but when we arrived here first thing, this whole area was blocked off. They had the yellow police tape up, and they were really focused in between these 2 buildings, especially outside of this nightclub. Crews say that they were called here at about 3:30 in the morning over reports of gunshots. They say they found 1 victim, an adult who was rushed to hospital with critical injuries, and they also say a second victim made their own way to hospital, also with critical injuries. I'll let you hear from some residents who work in this area. They say they're shocked by this brazen shooting overnight.
And that's crazy, you know. Last year there was a shooting over here across the street as well. I don't know. We've got to do something about these guns, I think, because young people are killing each other left, right, and center. It's just crazy.
Not late night. I do a lot of walking at lunchtime, and so I'm here during the day, but not at night. So I don't know, but It is what it is.
So you get the sense residents pretty surprised by all of this, and they also have questions. We've reached out to police to see if they have any sort of update on this shooting investigation. We're hearing they might be updating this later today. And there is the big question here, where did this happen and why? Was there some sort of fight that broke out, or was this targeted? As they say, police have cleared the scene, but what will be next in this, guys, they will be focusing on witness accounts and surveillance video. The nightclub they seem to be focused outside of, according to the website for that company, it closes at about 3 in the morning, and the emergency crews were called at about 3:30. So if anybody was outside of the club at the time, we know police would want to speak to those individuals. Over to you.
Okay, Courtney Hills reporting live. Thank you, Courtney. 2 people have been seriously injured in a 2-alarm fire that broke out in Etobicoke.
Yeah, CP24 Steve Ryan has been covering this for us this morning and continues coverage live from the scene. This is near Islington and Lakeshore. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari, it's actually just west of Islington and Lakeshore. 10th Street and Coyne is the location. It's that high-rise building behind me. And once again, Toronto Fire has shown how well-trained they are when it comes to dealing with putting out fires and getting to people who are trapped inside of units that are up on the higher level floors. And this particular unit was on the southwest corner, 7th floor. Toronto Fire were able to contain that fire into that 1 unit. I was talking to the district fire chief just a short time ago, and he was talking about the importance of time. Time is of the essence, and the quicker they can get to a call, the quicker they can get inside of a unit, the better chance they have of containing that fire into that 1 unit. And this is what they seem to have done in this particular case. So the fire is out, there are no more hot spots, and they stopped that fire from spreading to other units, which is incredibly important. Now, sadly, 2 people were rushed to hospital. We do not have an update on their injuries at this point in time, but there are no other injuries other than the 2 people that were in that southwest unit on the 7th floor that caught fire, sadly, earlier on this morning. Here's reaction from Toronto Fire, who we heard from earlier on. Let's listen.
Received a call for alarms in the building. We responded our crews on a fire response. Once they got here, there were heavy smoke and some flame up on one of the upper floors. We escalated to a second alarm. Crews, happy to report, crews were able to pull 2 people out of the building. So we made 2 rescues from this fire. Both of those patients were handed over to Toronto Paramedic Services, who took control of the medical aspect of that.
Cause, origin, circumstances of the fire will now be investigated by Toronto Fire investigators. If, in fact, there is a death, I'm not suggesting there is, but on the off chance that somebody does die in a fire, the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office will take the lead. So they're monitoring this investigation closely, and Toronto Police 22 Division are on scene as well. They'll run a parallel investigation, taking their lead from the fire experts, of course, as they gather their evidence. Send it back to you guys.
All right, CP24 Steve Ryan, thanks a lot. Well, the OPP said that 4 people were taken to hospital after a serious multi-vehicle crash. This happened in Mississauga. Police say a road rage incident resulted in 2 vehicles stopping in live lanes on the 403 at Mavis. And then a vehicle ran into the back of one of those cars. 2 more vehicles collided at the scene, causing one of them to roll into a ditch. And 2 of those injured. They were taken to hospital in serious condition. A 35-year-old driver has been charged with dangerous driving, causing bodily harm, as well as stunt driving.
I don't know what precipitated this aggression, but obviously sometimes with a short fuse, it doesn't take much. Many drivers narrowly missed crashing into these vehicles until finally one vehicle did, sending it sideways. Other vehicles got caught up in that damage. 2 vehicles ended up in the ditch. One of them rolled over. 2 people trapped. EMS fire extricated the 2 victims in that vehicle. Again, fortunately, the injuries are not considered life-threatening.
And along with that, the highway has since reopened.
Also making news, an arrest has been made after a man was fatally slashed in the neck downtown. This happened over the weekend.
Yeah, 50-year-old Joseph Anthony Emery is charged with second-degree murder. Police say that the victim, 50-year-old James Richardson, suffered life-threatening injuries in an altercation that happened Sunday morning just before 10:30 near Dalhousie and Shooter. He was rushed to hospital, and that's where he died of his injuries.
Police have made an arrest and identified the victim of a homicide over the weekend. 20-year-old Michaela Zine Roxburgh Carpino was found dead from gunshot wounds in an apartment near Eglinton and Dufferin early Saturday morning. 27-year-old Harold Santana Simon of Vaughan has been charged with first-degree murder. He appeared in court yesterday morning. Police have not said how the victim and suspect knew each other.
And police are investigating after 3 tow trucks were hit by gunfire in less than 24 hours. So the latest shooting happened just before 5 o'clock yesterday evening at Kennedy Road and Munham Gate, south of Ellesmere. And paramedics say that 1 person suffered minor injuries. On Saturday night, 2 tow trucks, they were shot at in the area of Markham Road and the 401. The drivers of those trucks, they were inside the vehicles at the time of the shooting, but they were able to escape without being hurt. It's not yet clear if the shootings are connected yet. No suspect description has been released.
Peel police are investigating a stabbing in Brampton. Emergency crews were called to the area of Centre and Vauden Streets around 10 o'clock last night. Paramedics say a 19-year-old man was taken to hospital, but his injuries are considered minor. There is no word on a possible suspect.
Organizers of a pro-Palestinian encampment at the University of Toronto say that the administration is not taking their concerns seriously.
The encampment is now in its 2nd week inside King's College Circle at the university's downtown campus. Demonstrators met with the school's administration yesterday for more than 2 hours, but it appears no progress was made. More than 100 tents are set up as protesters continue with their demands for the school to divest from companies who support the war in Gaza.
So while this is the first time in 188 years that the university has been willing to use the words divestment and disclosure in the same sentence as the word Palestine, the cost that our people in Palestine have had to pay for this is tragic. To the senior administration, who is no doubt listening to this press conference, hello, we say, bring us something real, bring us something concrete, bring us something immediate. We demand for disclosure, divestment, and for cutting ties with academic institutions in Israel today. The time has long passed for commitments to think about committing.
We're not asking for a complete severance of connections with all universities in Israel, just the ones that are physically located on illegal settlements or the ones that directly sustain this genocide. The reason they provided for rejecting our demand is that it is against their principles of freedom of expression and freedom of speech to cut ties with any university anywhere. They strongly believe that universities around the world play a pivotal role in social change.
So for the school's part, the university has consistently said it wants the demonstrators to dismantle the tents, but they have no plans to forcibly remove them as long as that demonstration remains peaceful.
Well, a coalition of public health advocates and officials, they're calling on the province to come up with a strategy to address alcohol use.
The group, which involved those from CAMH, the Canadian Cancer Society, and Addictions and Mental Health Ontario, says alcohol is more harmful than previously known. Based on this new evidence, the coalition wants the province to do more to put health and safety first instead of commercial interests. The group is also cautioning against expanding alcohol sales to convenience stores, noting it could put further strain on an already taxed healthcare system.
And south of the border, jurors in former U.S. President Donald Trump's hush money trial, they're hearing from the prosecution's star witness today. Trump's former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, is on the stand. Prosecutors allege Cohen arranged a $130,000 payment to porn actress Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election to buy her silence about an affair that she claimed to have had with Trump. The prosecution says that Trump reimbursed Cohen, but tried to conceal the true nature of those payments by labeling them as legal expenses. And they say that was an effort to falsify business records. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and actually spoke to reporters outside the courthouse this morning, reiterating his claim that the trial's a witch hunt.
We have records, and they talk about bookkeeping. The only thing down in the bookkeeping is that we call a legal expense a legal expense. We don't call it a construction expense. We don't say for concrete work. We don't say for electrical work. We pay the lawyer a legal expense. And we have a legal expense is a legal expense. It's marked down in the book, quote, legal expense. It's perfectly marked down. The other side doesn't know how to handle it, but they say, let's indict him anyway, because that's what Biden, this all comes from Biden in the White House.
John Misick, editor at masslive.com, joined us with more on what to expect from Cohen and an in-depth look at the trial.
They're hoping, prosecutors are, that he'll make the most detailed case to date, showing that Trump tried deliberately to conceal this money, because they've not been able to do that so far. So there'll be a lot riding on him. Cross-examination, which is supposed to start next week, they're going to try to show that he's a liar seeking revenge on Trump. So there's a lot on the line here for Michael Cohen.
Donald Trump faces 34 counts of falsifying business records.
Right now, it is 16 degrees. Coming up next on CP24 Live at Noon, we're going to talk to the head of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario about new numbers that revealed the severity of staffing shortages. Government figures are revealing the severity of staffing shortages in Ontario's health and long-term care sectors. Data obtained by the Canadian Press shows that the province will need more than 33,000 nurses, 51,000 personal support workers by the year 2032.
And for a closer look at these numbers, we're joined live now by Doris Grinspun, CEO of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Doris, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you again. Thanks for having us.
So this information was only revealed after a Freedom of Information request was filed. Do the numbers surprise you? Let's begin with that.
Sadly, the numbers do not surprise RNO, because we have been warning government after government for the last 15 years, if not more, that this is the case. The only time that the situation was better, not worse, was the first round of McGuinty government. The second round again started to decline, then with Kathleen Wynne, and then now the two rounds. We are taking action. There is one piece of good news. More people want to become nurses. What we need is more funding for them to be hired and kept in Ontario during their nursing career. So the door is not shut. The door is wide open that more people want to join the profession. We need the funding to ensure that they join the workforce and that they stay in Ontario.
Why do you think the government kept these numbers from the public? I mean, does the public not deserve to have access to these figures?
Well, I think the government might have been shocked, not us, but the government. If government after government would have listened to RNO, they would not have been shocked. That's in all of our reports. And I think the government also is afraid of the political backlash, right? The reality is that both government, RNO, and any other organization related to healthcare or the politics should be concerned about Ontarians and not about the politics of it. This is a policy issue, it's solvable, and we need to work together to continue to make all the efforts all at once to solve it. It means competitive compensation, right? It means harmonization across all sectors, nurses in home care, in primary care, have significantly lower wages than nurses in hospital care. We need to harmonize upwards. It means more supports in the workplace to ensure that nurses stay here, and it means continuing to uptake the many people that want to live in Ontario and are living in Ontario without poaching from other countries, that are living in Ontario to join the workforce. All of this is doable, and we need to do it all at once. The good news is more people want to become nurses, so let's keep going.
Okay. Staying with healthcare, Doris, I want to talk to you about this. A coalition of public health advocates are now calling for a provincial alcohol strategy. I know that the RNAO was a part of that. Tell me more about the letter that you helped write and your message.
Yeah, we sent a letter actually today to the government urging them for a provincial alcohol strategy that involves health and social sectors. As you know, the government added 8,500 stores across Ontario, including convenience stores, which are at the time opposed. The province yet does not have a coordinated action plan for reducing harms of alcohol use, both health harms, as you know, cancer, and 200 other diseases that are directly linked to alcohol consumption, and also the social problems, breakout of families, etc., that comes with that. We are asking on the government to build a absolutely a provincial strategy. I believe the medical officer of health, Dr. Kieran Moore, also asked for changing the age from 19 to 21. The government is not in agreement with that. Will show us a provincial strategy, and RNAO, as well as the entire coalition of organizations across public health, research and advocacy, and community mental health and addictions sectors, want to be part of that strategy to prevent additional harm for Ontarians and, quite frankly, for families and communities.
Okay, Doris Grinsman, CEO of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, thank you very much for your time and covering a couple different subjects for us this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Doris.
Thank you very much. And if I may call people to come to the May 28th rally at Queen's Park related to toxic drug supplies, also that is important. We need you there. We are losing precious lives to substance use. Thank you.
Okay, Doris Grinspan, live on CP24. Thank you for this. And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we'll take a look at a new study at how common receiving a cancer diagnosis is becoming in an emergency room. Stay with us for that discussion. Welcome back. A new study published today in the Canadian Medical Association Journal looks at how common receiving a cancer diagnosis in an emergency room is becoming. And for more on the situation, we're joined live now by Dr. Michael Howlett, president of the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians. Thanks so much for joining us, Doctor. We are hearing from doctors who say that receiving a diagnosis of cancer in an emergency department is becoming routine in our country. That's an awful way to receive a life-altering diagnosis. Tell me what's happening.
But what's happening is that patients and families don't have access to their major primary care providers. And so two things happen. One is when they have an acute illness or a crisis, they're coming to the emergency department quite often. And a subset of that group of patients has a cancer as the underlying cause of their symptoms. Second of all, there isn't good enough access for primary care physicians to testing, etc. And so when this is delayed, quite often people come to the emergency department because we're actually one of the few places where you can get urgent testing in a timely fashion. That's just the way the system is right now. It's a bit of a shame. When I was a family doctor 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I made most of those diagnoses myself from the office. But what happens now is because of these delays, people are having their diagnoses made later and further along in their illness, which of course is why the study and the editorial in CMAJ suggested that it may be decreasing people's survival.
And How challenging does that become? You're now dealing with a patient who has cancer and they don't have a primary care physician. So what does that process look like?
Well, it even happens to people with a primary care physician. And even in those cases, follow-up can be really slow. And to tell you the truth, I mean, this happens to me a lot. And what I find the most disturbing is trying to deal with this kind of a severe diagnosis with a family that I've never met before and that I have no previous relationship with. And I tell you, it's a challenge to come to somebody with some kind of positive demeanor or attitude and tell them, look, you might have a tumor, you might have a cancer, and that you really need to see a specialist in this area urgently. And then the next problem that's also brought up, I think through the study that was done in the editorial, is that once you do make that potential diagnosis, because you don't have a tissue sample yet that confirms it, as that in many places access in a timely fashion to the proper investigations and treatment can be delayed, because in some places the pathways into care are either really difficult or sometimes even non-existent. And there is always a chance in the emergency department where you only see a patient once that you refer people on and it can get dropped. So this is a big concern for us.
It's a really terrifying scenario, one that nobody wants to find themselves in. What is the solution, do you think? I know we know that we need more primary care physicians.
There's a couple of things. One is the primary care network, of course, needs to be improved, and we all know that, and we've known that for many years, and I don't know what to say. It's like you're talking to yourself sometimes when you're trying to explain the needs in the population. Same thing for emergency departments and crowding. But the other thing is that when we make a diagnosis in the emergency department, the most difficult thing for us is, number one, of course, talking to the patients and families. But number two is being able to guarantee to them that there's a timely route into the subsequent investigations and treatment that need to happen. And this is identified in the study as well, is that sometimes those pathways are slow, they're difficult to sort out. They exist in some places for certain limited numbers of types of tumors, but not for everyone. And so getting people into care and having guaranteed referral pathways is very difficult. And it's anxiety inducing both to us and to patients to know that, there's a chance that it may be delayed. I can't give people a time when they'll be called back or when they'll get investigated. It's a major problem.
Yeah, it really does sound like a very big problem. Dr. Michael Howlett, president of the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this.
Well, thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate it.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, two people, they are fighting for their lives following a shooting near a nightclub at Keele and Finch. The latest on the search for suspects, that's coming up next.
Two people have been seriously injured in a high-rise fire near Islington and Lakeshore. One of them rescued from a 7th floor unit.
Two people are fighting for their lives following a shooting near a nightclub at Keele and Finch. We'll tell you more about that.
And new figures are painting a grim picture of Ontario's healthcare staffing shortage. The province will need more than 33,000 nurses and 51,000 personal support workers by 2032.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at noon. I'm Lena Latifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. Two people are in critical condition. This is following an overnight shooting near Keele and Finch.
According to paramedics, one of the victims made their own way to hospital while another adult was transported with life-threatening injuries. The shooting happened at a nightclub and police have now cordoned off the area.
It is scary. I have an office just down the street. I've been here for over 20 years. This kind of thing used to happen more to the west of us, and I guess it's recently moving in this direction. And yeah, it makes me feel far less safe than I have in the past.
I found it very scary.
So
because I do live in the downtown area.
There is no word on the circumstances of the shooting or any suspects.
And the OPP say that 4 people were taken to hospital after a serious multi-vehicle crash in Mississauga. Police say a road rage incident resulted in 2 vehicles stopping in the live lanes on the 403 at Mavis. And then a vehicle ran into the back of one of those cars. 2 more vehicles collided at the scene, causing one of them to roll into the ditch. You see it right here. 2 of those injured. They were taken to hospital in serious condition. A 35-year-old driver has been charged with dangerous driving, causing bodily harm, as well as stunt driving.
This kind of behavior completely unacceptable. At midnight, dark car, no lights, road rage, stopping on a live lane. This is just an absolute recipe for disaster.
And the highway has since reopened.
Well, 2 people have been seriously injured in a 2-alarm fire in Etobicoke.
Let's go live to CP24, Steve Ryan, who's live near the scene. Steve.
Lakeshore and 10th Street, Coyne Street is the exact street that this 12-story building is on. Bakari and Lena and the Toronto Fire tell us that they responded to a 2-alarm fire on the 7th floor earlier on this morning. They were able to contain the fire in the 1 unit, which is on the southwest corner. You can probably see behind me on the 7th floor there is a window that is smashed out. And once again, it speaks to the quality of training that the men and women with Toronto Fire do and have because they are able to get to these high locations in very quick time. The district commander was telling me that time is of the essence, and the quicker they can get to a spot to put the fire out, the less chance it has of spreading. And in this particular case, although 2 people sadly have been injured and have been taken to hospital, they were able to contain the fire to the 1 unit itself. So it does again speak to their dedication, their professionalism, their training, that they're able to get 7 stories up and keep that fire from spreading to other locations. We are told that the fire is out. There are no more hotspots, and now they're waiting for Toronto Fire to conduct an investigation. The Ontario Fire Marshal's office will monitor the investigation, and if there is a death or serious injury, the OFM will take over as lead. But right now, the Toronto Fire investigators are doing the investigation, and the Toronto Police detectives are here as well, and they'll run a parallel investigation alongside the Toronto Fire. Here's more from the Toronto Fire, who we heard from earlier today. That's just it.
Getting to the building is one thing, and then getting up to the floors is another. So we have very specific protocols, and everybody in the team has a job to do. And again, we have several teams coming. Once we know there is a fire and we declare a second alarm, we bring more staff on to establish what we call critical tasks. And everybody has their pre-assigned critical tasks. The incident commander on the scene will just start divvying them out, and everybody just sort of does their part. We get there as quick as we can, get up as quick as we can, and get the patients out. It's priority 1.
You can see one of the Toronto Police investigators talking to the uniformed car there on scene, and just opposite them, the Toronto Fire Services, their investigators were talking to the police investigators, and they constantly share information. And once that is done, then the Toronto Fire will take the lead. They'll conduct the investigation, cause, origin, and circumstances of the fire, and they'll share that with Toronto Police. So back to you guys.
All right, Steve Ryan keeping a close eye on this story in Etobicoke for us. Thank you, Steve. Police have made an arrest and identified the victim of a homicide over the weekend. 20-year-old Michaela Zane Roxburgh Carpino was found dead from gunshot wounds in an apartment near Eglinton and Dufferin early Saturday morning. 27-year-old Harold Santana Simon of Vaughan has been charged with first-degree murder. He appeared in court yesterday morning. Police have not said how the victim and suspect knew each other.
An arrest has been made after a man was fatally slashed in the neck. This happened downtown over the weekend. 50-year-old Joseph Anthony Emery is charged with second-degree murder. And police say that the victim, 50-year-old James Richardson, suffered life-threatening injuries in an altercation Sunday morning just before 10:30 near Dalhousie and Shooter. He was rushed to hospital, and that's where he died of his injuries.
Police are investigating after 3 tow trucks were hit by gunfire in less than 24 hours. The latest shooting happened just before 5 p.m. yesterday at Kennedy Road and Munham Gate. That's south of Ellesmere. Paramedics say one person suffered minor injuries. On Saturday night, 2 tow trucks were shot at in the area of Markham Road and the 401. The drivers of those trucks were in their vehicles at the time but escaped without injuries. It's not clear if the shootings are connected yet, and no suspect description has been released.
And Peel police are investigating a stabbing in Brampton. Emergency crews were called to the area of Centre and Vauden Streets around 10 o'clock last night. The paramedics say that a 19-year-old man was taken to hospital, but his injuries are considered minor. There's no word on a possible suspect just yet.
Toronto police are showcasing their work during Police Week.
The initiative runs until Saturday. It's meant to highlight the work that police services do all across the province. And this year's theme is Join Policing, Keep Ontario Safe. And it's meant to celebrate members as well as promote recruitment.
It is essential that our recruiting efforts also work to ensure that our membership is representative of the communities we serve. To achieve this, our talent acquisition unit has implemented strategies to enhance diversity, including targeted recruitment efforts for underrepresented communities and demographics.
Toronto police recently told city staff they need to hire hundreds of more officers in the next few years as the population increases and officers retire or leave the force. Organizers of the pro-Palestinian encampment at the University of Toronto say that the administration is not taking their concerns seriously. The encampment is in its second week inside King's College Circle at the university's downtown campus. Demonstrators met with the school's administration yesterday for more than 2 hours, but it appears no progress was made. More than 100 tents are set up as protesters continue with their demands for the school to divest from companies who support the war in Gaza.
This is not about punishing individuals, about punishing individual critics that are vociferous critics of the state. This is about holding accountable entire institutions that are designed to support apartheid, that are designed to enable occupation, and they are designed to make possible genocide. These are institutions that work closely with the Israeli Defense Forces.
We've had to sit, sleep, and yell at the front doors of Simcoe Hall for 2 weeks now. Still sitting face to face with university administrators, all we hear them say is, "We'll think about it." Like a bad ex, all we've gotten is gaslighting and fears of commitment. Do something today, not tomorrow. We pressed admin on this exact lack of concrete commitments, highlighting exactly how they've used the same mechanisms proposed to us yesterday to drag out fossil fuel divestment by 5 years.
The university has consistently said they want the demonstrators to dismantle the tents, but they have no plans to forcibly remove them as long as it remains peaceful.
Government figures are revealing just how severe the staffing shortages in Ontario's health and long-term care sectors are. Data obtained by the Canadian Press shows that the province is going to need more than 33,000 nurses and 51,000 personal support workers by 2032. The projections are in addition to personnel who are already being trained. The government recently won a fight to keep those numbers under wraps, but they were released through an access to information request. Doris Grinspan, CEO of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, joined CP24 Live at noon with some solutions to the workforce shortage.
It means competitive compensation, right? It means harmonization across all sectors. Nurses in home care, in primary care, have significantly lower wages than nurses in hospital care. We need to harmonize upwards. It means more supports in the workplace to ensure that nurses stay here. And it means continuing to uptake the many people that want to live in Ontario and are living in Ontario without poaching from other countries that are living in Ontario to join the workforce. All of this is doable, and we need to do it all at once. The good news is more people want to become nurses, so let's keep going.
And a new study published today in the Canadian Medical Association Journal looks at how common receiving a cancer diagnosis is in an emergency room. Dr. Michael Howlett is the president of the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians, and he joined us live to talk about this problem.
There isn't good enough access for primary care physicians to testing, etc. And so when this is delayed, quite often people come to the emergency department because we're actually one of the few places where you can get urgent testing in a timely fashion. That's just the way the system is right now. It's a bit of a shame.
A new study suggests that early detection and prevention is leading to declining cancer rates as well as deaths in Canada. While the study shows that rates of lung, colorectal, and prostate cancers are projected to decrease this year, less common cancers such as melanoma, liver, and kidney cancers, as well as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, are likely to rise. As study authors praise organized screening programs, which have enabled doctors to catch cancer earlier as well as new treatment options. Well, Dr. Christopher Labos is an epidemiologist and cardiologist. He joined us with more of the study.
It's really fascinating to look at these things, and we have to remember that cancer is not one disease. It's actually a bunch of different diseases. But for the most common ones and the ones that are responsible for the greatest number of deaths, lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, the trends are generally speaking downwards because we've gotten so good at getting rid of smoking as a risk factor and also early detection and treatment.
The study estimates that there will be 247,000 new cancer cases, along with 88,000 cancer deaths in 2024.
And staying with healthcare, a coalition of public health advocates and officials are calling on the province to come up with a strategy to address alcohol use.
The group, which involved those from CAMH, the Canadian Cancer Society, and Addictions and Mental Health Ontario, say that alcohol is more harmful than previously known. And based on this new evidence, the coalition wants the province to do more to put health and safety first instead of commercial interests. The group's also cautioning against expanding alcohol sales to convenience stores, noting that it could put further strain on an already taxed healthcare system.
Jurors in former U.S. President Donald Trump's hush money trial are hearing from the prosecution's star witness today. Trump's former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, is on the stand. Prosecutors allege he arranged a $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election to buy her silence about an affair she claimed to have had with the former president. The prosecution says Trump reimbursed Cohen but tried to conceal the true nature of those payments by labeling them as legal expenses. They say that was an effort to falsify business records. Trump has denied any wrongdoing. And he spoke to reporters outside the courthouse this morning, reiterating his claim that the trial is a witch hunt.
This trial is rigged. It's dishonest. It's a disgrace to New York. It's a disgrace to the country. I should be out campaigning now instead of sitting in a very cold courthouse all day long. This is a Biden prosecution. It's election interference at a level that nobody in this country has ever seen before. This is for third world countries, not for the USA.
John Misick, editor at MassLive.com, joined us with more on what to expect from Cohen and an in-depth look at the trial.
I am sure that they will come at Mr. Cohen hard. There was some reporting this morning showing the judge would like him to cease his public comments about the case. Mr. Cohen is frequently on American cable news channels holding forth on the Trump case, and Trump's lawyers have argued, well, if he has to stay silent, it is only fair that Mr. Cohen has to stay silent so he does not make any prejudicial remarks.
Trump faces 34 counts of falsifying business records.
Well, Taylor Swift fans are organizing a huge tailgate party when the pop star comes to Toronto.
The Swift is scheduled to play 6 nights in Toronto across 2 weekends in November. A fan festival with music, sing-alongs, and friendship bracelet creation space is scheduled to take over the Toronto Metro Convention Center from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. On the same day as Swift's concerts, the organizers say that the tailgate will offer a safe, indoor, and accessible space for young fans.
Time now is 12:45, 20 degrees out there, feeling more like 22. Let's get a check on that rush hour drive. Adwa and Siaya keeping a close eye on that situation. Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, Lena Bakari. And it has been a busy morning and into the early afternoon. But I'll start with some good news. We had some problems. They were happening on the southbound 404 ramp that took you to Shepherd. Both lanes of that ramp were blocked at the collision. The problems there have cleared. Now, if you're continuing further south onto the Don Valley Parkway, you have rain delays, and especially on the southbound side, traffic not moving through this light rain from Eglinton all the way down to just south of Lawrence. It is these grass cutting crews. You can see that shoulder is big enough for them to be on, but they've decided to be in the left lane and create delays for all the commuters that are trying to make the way through. Again, Don Millswick Park, good alternatives. Also problems, this is on the 401 westbound exit ramp that takes you to Kennedy. Right lane of that ramp blocked to the stalled transport truck, and maintenance slowing down the drive into Mississauga. Toronto-bound QEW at Mississauga Road, you will find that right lane is out. It is only those 2 left lanes getting by. More problems impacting TTC Line 2. No service between St. George all the way over to Woodbine. That is for some ongoing operational issues. In the meantime, TTC is running shuttle buses to see passengers by. I'll send it back to you.
The CP24 traffic report is brought to you by CapitalDirect.ca.
Coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we're going to talk to CTV's royal commentator about Prince Harry and Meghan's trip to Nigeria. Prince Harry and Meghan, they've wrapped up their first visit to Nigeria.
And for a closer look at that visit, we're joined live by CTV's royal commentator now, Afia Hagen. Afia, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, can we call this a royal tour?
Well, no, it's not really a royal tour. It's a royal couple on a private tour as private dignitaries, as private citizens working on the philanthropy. And this tour was really about the Invictus Games, which is obviously this incredible initiative of which Prince Harry is the founding patron. And that's what it was all about. It was all about different cultural things as well. There was some amazing fashion on display. You see them there. The basketball match, which took place as well, was really, really fun. So not a royal tour, but I will go out on a limb and say this, certainly how a royal tour should be done.
Okay, so also, we're talking about pivotal causes close to Harry and Meghan's hearts. What stood out to you?
I think for me, definitely, was conversations around disability and wounded veterans in Nigeria. Now, Nigeria has an army of 230,000 people. It's one of the biggest armies on the continent of Africa. And in West Africa, in Nigeria, we don't really have these conversations about disability, about wounded veterans. And I think it's really, really important, actually, that the Invictus Games was a part of shining a light on that. The Invictus Games had a Nigerian team for the first time last year. And I think that's what really stood out to me, whether it was the sit-down handball they played, whether it was the basketball. And it was also conversations about visiting school, talking about mental health, which again, on the continent of Africa, we're not really into doing that, and that was commended by the governor of the state of Lagos, by other people that they met with, the Women Empowerment Panel. I think this is all about opening up these conversations around mental health, around wounded veterans, around disability. And I think that is super, super important and must be commended. But what stood out to me, definitely the basketball, it was so much fun being there for that. That was really good fun. But also Meghan's fashion choices, whether it was wearing traditional dress and the Etobicoke that she wore, that kind of blue skirt with the Carolina Herrera white shirt, being culturally sensitive, wearing that gorgeous yellow dress, and later on she was wearing traditional cloth and beads with it. It was just so amazing to see Nigerian designers. The red dress that she wore was by a Nigerian designer called Orire. That dress, the website crashed, they sold out. It's about putting a country that usually has so many negative connotations on the map in a positive light. And I love that.
Yeah, everybody's talking about the fashion and the Nigerian designers that Meghan Markle wore. The two of them seem really comfortable. It really seems like they're in their element. Did you get that sense as well, Afia?
Definitely. When they were meeting people or meeting the crowds or meeting the journalists, they were so comfortable, really at home, really happy, really relaxed, making jokes, really kind to everyone, stopping and having conversations. It seemed that they were really, really in their element. And like I said, this was all about Invictus. And they were so passionate about Invictus, especially Prince Harry. And of course, we know that Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, is really passionate about women's empowerment. And so when she was on the panel that she was on at Ebony Life, and she was talking about that and her Nigerian heritage, we know that she's 43% Nigerian, she found out through a DNA test.
Yes.
And those two topics, in their wheelhouses, they are so comfortable. And they seem like they really enjoyed that trip. Meghan described it as a whirlwind, and I can certainly concur.
Yeah, we're learning a little bit more about Meghan's Nigerian roots, Afia. I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. What do you think it meant for people there to see Meghan in the role that she was playing?
I know for a fact from people that I spoke to that they were so happy that Harry and Meghan decided to come to Nigeria, that they accepted this invitation from the Defence Chief of Staff, that they felt safe enough to come, that they felt welcome enough to come. And a lot of people were saying, first of all, that they were really happy that Prince Harry was carrying on his mother's philanthropic style of work. And they were also really happy that Meghan Markle felt that it was a bit of a homecoming for her, that finding out about this piece of her heritage was really exciting for her. And so therefore, to be able to take up that invitation and be able to see, a part of her heritage, almost a half of her heritage, was really important to her. So people were really happy that they decided to take up this trip, they decided to come, and they decided to do it in such style.
Okay, CTV's royal commentator, Afia Hagen, thank you for making time with us while you travel.
Thanks, Afia. Appreciate this.
Anytime.
Well, turning to sports, Toronto's professional women's hockey team can now advance to the finals with a win against Minnesota tonight.
Now, Toronto is up 2-0 in their opening round series after 2 solid victories on home ice. The best-of-5 series now moves to Minnesota. This is where the home team will try to stave off elimination. Puck drop is set for 8 o'clock.
And thank you for watching CP24 live at noon.